What's up, guys? Welcome back.
Hey, hey.
How's it going?
So we're all back in the saddle. It's been a few weeks since we've all been in this formation. 2 to 3 weeks. A lot's happened. So you guys want to start talking about that? I think we had a 60% correction, pretty much across the board. Bunch of
I
alts
think
got pummeled.
I think at this point, a 60% correction is more like a crash than a correction.
Depends on who you ask, right?
I'd say.
It does seem like we're stabilizing right now, or have stabilized. Things are bouncing back. CZ just tweeted, "I am ready." Hashtag BNB. And then of course is not financial advice, but it is. So
I don't know. The last
are we
time
going up
CZ
or?
tweeted, the last time CZ tweeted, the price of BNB was like $650, and he said, "Still in the dip," and then the price just crashed. So, not financial advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his tweets are pretty interesting. Obviously, he has a pretty good pulse of markets. You know, he sees them all on his screen, internal systems. He's got a real good glimpse of it. So you do have to kind of give him that. But with all that power, can you really go by everything he's saying? Is this CZ's best Elon impression right now?
I actually don't know enough about CZ. Yeah, I think I mean, obviously plugged in. Um, but I guess broadly speaking, um, markets rinsed the last couple of weeks. Bitcoin went from like 60K down to 30K. I think that was like a buying opportunity of a lifetime. Since then, we've kind of hovered around 35-ish, plus or minus, for the last couple of weeks. Ethereum, similar story, and then alts just got fucking hammered, which was both beautiful and devastating. um, so yeah, I think overall we got a pretty huge rinse out of the market. One of the things about 60% moves is that rinses all leverage out. If you have anything more than like half times leverage, then you're completely wiped clean. So that's definitely necessary. And then typically speaking, after a 30 or a 50% drawdown in the market, it takes a while to overcome that. It's not like the market's just going to snap back up, in my opinion. It will take some consolidation. But yeah, I think some things definitely look really solid compared to other things. I think it's interesting, and I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on this, but it seems like ETH has decoupled from the broader alt market. And now it seems like when people talk about Bitcoin, ETH moves very similarly to Bitcoin. It seems like ETH and Bitcoin are kind of one and one. There's not really a lot of distinction between them, and then you have the rest of alts. Um, it seems like Ethereum has like graduated, maybe not quite up to Bitcoin's level, but has definitely um, has separated from the rest of the pack. Do you guys agree with this, or is ETH still an alt?
Um, I could see that. I mean, from a moving in tandem perspective, but I also think about it like one of the things that I saw was if a flippening does happen, if ETH displaces Bitcoin, does that make Bitcoin an alt? So, how do you really kind of define that? But ETH kind of, to me, in a larger market monetary system, should and can move in tandem. But as its own ecosystem and its own type of money, it should have its own. We've seen it do different things. Look at what DOGE is doing right now. Sometimes it moves with the market. Sometimes it moves completely against the market. Sometimes it seems like the market rotates in and out of DOGE. And I think that we've seen that happen plenty of times with ETH, where it'll jump on the bandwagon, move alongside Bitcoin, and then deviate from that, and vice versa. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that where are we in that whole thing with ETH? I think ETH is just as accepted as Bitcoin in terms of market mindset. So most of the time would move in tandem.
I think ETH is what ETH is, man. Like Bitcoin's digital gold. It moves like a digital gold. But it's been not like digital gold lately because it's been a lot more up. Ethereum's digital oil. And, sometimes oil moves like gold. Sometimes oil moves like oil. Like oil's way more used than gold. Oil has supply and demand shocks based on supply lockups and production and what's being burned. And, it's like, I think Ethereum's like oil. And I think that it's going to continue to be like oil. And, it's like, I know that I sounded crazy when I made the call on what I thought my top prediction for Ethereum would be. But I'm sure you've seen over the past few days that all these alpha leakers on Twitter are now coming out with similar targets. When they were saying 20,000 and I was saying 80,000, now they're saying 100,000. And so it's like, I think people are starting to see it the way that I see it, and that Ethereum has a whole lot more utility than Bitcoin right now. And the lockup with staking and everything else is going to cause a supply shock that's going to be out of this world, especially with low fees and everybody using it and it being burned like crazy and crazy and crazy because it's being used like crazy because the fees are so low and everything's being locked up. And then just like oil, as soon as proof of stake comes out and all this supply gets unlocked, the price is going to collapse. And it's going to provide the best buying opportunity for Ethereum that like you'll probably ever have, because all of this Ethereum that's been locked up on layer two, like that can't be moved, is now going to be able to be sold. But also they've made more ETH from staking it this whole time. So they're not only going to get all their ETH back, but they're going to get their ETH back plus their staking interest. And it's not like they've been poor this whole time, because Kobe and these other services have created DAOs that have allowed them to get a liquid ETH version that is backed by their staked ETH. So they've been able to participate in DeFi and get stable coins and do everything else. And so it's not like, I don't know. I just think that Ethereum is Ethereum, and like, I think that it's trying to compete with Bitcoin, but I don't think that like it's ever been just like some altcoin.
That's fair. I think it was an altcoin back in 2020, early 2020, when the entire market just shit itself. And, there was reason to be bullish about Ethereum. I hear you in that it's always been different, kind of with Vitalik being like smart contract platform. It's always had a really nice narrative to it, but it really flowed with the rest of alts for the majority of its life. And I just kind of see that maybe possibly decoupling here. And, you know, I think we're all still super bullish. We all think Ethereum is going to flip Bitcoin. But yeah, it kind of seems like those thoughts are warranted now.
I want to disagree with you there, because Kobe brought up a good point on one of the up onlys about how there is a possible scenario where Ethereum is widely used enough to where enough supply gets burned that the price of Ethereum can go higher than the price of Bitcoin, or almost as high as the price of Bitcoin, without Ethereum actually flipping Bitcoin. Because there's a situation where enough Ethereum gets burned to where Ethereum could be at 0.2, 0.3, and still not actually flip Bitcoin in market cap. That would be crazy.
That would be absurd. Because you'd be talking about like what the current supply is, like 115 million, something along those lines. And for the price to get to like 0.2 on an BTC ratio, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how much supply you would need. Like you'd have to eliminate like 30 million potentially for that. And I don't think that was, I mean, obviously when it comes to things like EIP 1559, there's going to be unintended consequences of any, you know, change in protocols. But I don't think that was an intended protocol. I think they were just trying to make it slightly deflationary, but who knows?
Well, according to a quick Google search, there's only 3 million ETH that are staked. So I mean, technically it's possible.
One thing you mentioned though was like the supply shock with ETH, and kind of going back to our conversation last week, just what stage we're in of the market cycle we're in. I think you're absolutely right that there will be a supply shock that will like precede the markup or coincide with the markup of price. And I don't think ETH is the only one that's going to benefit from that. You know, you can look at all these different graphics and see how much of a particular token is left on exchange, or like remains on exchange. And to me, you know, we are still kind of in that institutional phase, with people buying up their supply, or like, I'm sorry, institutions buying their supply of the coins that they like. And then the mania phase happens when, you know, there's not a lot of supply left and the public want in, but no institutional investors are selling. And so like, I think the supply narrative of what's available on exchanges is actually like pretty indicative of where we're heading in terms of the broader market.
I agree. And you know, that's what some people have been. I did a lot of Twitter cleansing this weekend, and got my Twitter followers back down below 4, or Twitter follow, like I'm following back down below 400 to get like a more curated feed. And one of the arguments that I saw was that the technical analysis right now is very bearish, but the open interest and exchange outflows are so bullish that like the TA can be wrong. Like, you know, most of the time it's not, but that, you know, we've never done anything like this. And to dump the market like crazy, you know, would need super exchange inflows, which would be traceable on chain. So it's like at some point it's going to be impossible for them to dump on us.
I don't follow your logic there.
So if Bitcoin keeps coming off the exchange, like even if you're margin trading, that Bitcoin still has to be on the exchange. You're not trading with Bitcoin that's not on the exchange. And if this Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything keeps flowing off of the exchange, then like to crash the price, there's going to have to be inflows because they've been pulling it off. And it's like, I don't know if they understand that like to get it back on, they're going to have to do a transaction. And it's, even though it's private, the amount's going to register on somebody's alert system. Like we're going to get to see the coins move to the exchange. We're going to get to know the dumps coming at some point.
You kind of like potentially, but you'll have 10 minutes to know, right? Like you won't have a lot of time. You'll have, based off the Bitcoin blockchain, you'll have 10 minutes to know. Based off the ETH blockchain, you'll have like what, 45 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Like so it'll happen. I mean, I totally hear what you're saying, and you can get alerted to that information. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have a lot of time to know for sure, especially if it's market dumping, like institutional market dumps. Yeah, they'll just transfer 100,000 Bitcoin and dump on you like that. That would suck. But yeah, I think I firmly believe we're still in that kind of bear trap area. We're still right, just kind of chugging along, consolidating after a big drawdown. And I honestly think it's like a great time to load up on some of these alts that we have. So maybe we can talk about some alts that we like. Tyler, Rishi, any thoughts there?
You talking about?
Hey, you talking about alts like what's looking tasty right now, or are you looking at alts like what we may be holding on to and looking at current positioning?
Either or. Yeah, I mean, I think both of those coincide. There's large overlap between both of those.
All right. Well, where are our current positions on some of our alts? I mean, how did we fare after? I mean, we're not on leverage because we're awesome, and that would have been a bad move. But if we were, we would have been wiped out, like you said. Everybody on leverage was essentially wiped out because of the percentage of the drawdown. Over 50% means that if you're on leverage, you got liquidated. We weren't, but we've seen things kind of stabilize, bounce back a little bit in some scenarios, in a lot of scenarios as of today, kind of, it seems like. And it may not be a full bounce back, maybe a fake out of some sorts, but yeah, where are our alts? Where are our alts on a Bitcoin basis? Have we held value decently well, or have we really struggled recovering from that?
We did pretty good.
Yeah, it really wasn't awful.
I think a smart move was that we all agreed to take very small positions with our more speculative plays.
Yeah, because those got crushed.
And our conviction plays, for the most part, didn't really kill us. And some still did pretty good.
Specifically, like our two biggest conviction plays are being Link and Zcash. Zcash took a bath for sure. Link also took a bath, but wasn't hit quite as hard, and it's rebounded extraordinarily well. I think part of that is because the Arbitrum narrative that released, that got released in, I think, on May 28th. And just looking, like utilizing ETH in the last week since I've been back, gas fees being like consistently between 20 and 30 Gwei have been absolutely phenomenal. It's just like to be able to use the like layer one chain again, is like really fantastic. So yeah, I think we're all pretty bullish on Link, and then Zcash as well. I think there was an incredible buying opportunity, because like on a macro time frame, we kind of took out one higher low, and so we are in for some consolidation most likely. But on a dollar basis, like you could buy, and I didn't, but I wish because I was on vacation. But like you could have bought Zcash like in 2 digits. Like you could have bought 2-digit Zcash, which was like, holy cow, that's like that would be like buying Bitcoin, when it was $1,000, like it's truly like a pretty, that was pretty, I think, great buy the dip opportunity. So yeah, I think personally, like, I think it's just, we are in for some consolidation. I don't think we're going to go just straight to all-time highs, but specifically on the Zcash ETH chart, I've been looking at that this week, and that really looks fascinating to me. I don't know, if you could zoom out a little bit more. Like it's been a pretty bad like chart all in all, but this kind of formation kind of reminds me of a triple bottom, potentially forming. It's still not confirmed. We haven't really taken out any highs yet, so it's still very early stages. But this chart makes me like extraordinarily bullish, along with Halo being released later in the year, which would allow potential protocols to be built on top of Zcash. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things coming in the pipeline, and I'm super bullish on both of these. But yeah, they definitely took a relatively large hit, but are still kind of holding their ground.
Yeah, I think what you're saying are two largest kind of off the grid conviction plays. I think there's a couple things to note there. I mean, first of all, why didn't they get hit the way that other things did? I think part of that, very simply, is just a size issue, a market cap issue. If you think about things in terms of a river, and there's a bunch of little minnows in the river, and then there's a bunch of bigger fish, and then there's larger bodies. As the river, moves and becomes more volatile, those different little fishies are going to be affected in different ways. And when you have big market moves, you got to think about it like an earthquake or waves crashing on shore, just a lot of volatility. The smaller projects that you have are likely to get rugged, right? To get completely drained, the equivalent of a run on the bank. And more familiarly for some folks is kind of like, it's kind of like being on leverage. A lot of those small projects themselves are leveraged, and they don't make the cut when it comes to money flowing out of markets. The projects that we're looking at, I mean, some of those would qualify for smaller cap stuff, but when we make quote unquote conviction plays, especially of magnitude and relative size of our portfolio, we tend to err on the side of a little bit more caution. And it almost works like a sliding scale in some ways. The more risky the asset, potentially the greater reward. The smaller the asset, the more we concern ourselves with the possibilities of being at the mercy of the environment. And I mean, you know how it is. You can be right about something and the timing can be off, or you can be right about something and not because you were wrong, but because of just the way that things worked out, that didn't get a chance to prove you right. There was nothing wrong about what you did, but ignoring what happens in the markets and the effect of that environment on what type of asset you're working with a lot of times determines strategy. And I think that we've learned a lot in the last few years. We spend a lot of our time studying and developing our strategies to be better at this decision-making process and to try to be prepared. But, you saw a lot of exuberance, I think. You saw a lot of people pouring into Dogecoin, and I saw some people selling their houses for Dogecoin. Yeah, that's kind of part of stuff we've joked about, but we saw a little bit of that. And those are signs of kind of toppiness. We know those things, but what happened? You never know. You don't want to miss the run up. If we're really super cycle, then none of this really even matters because we're still going up. But you got to be prepared for getting wiped out. So fortunately for us, we weren't in, really any large positions or anything of significance that was at risk of that. This 60% pullback or crash, however you want to look at it, was not a 90% pullback or crash. That would be leading to a different conversation right now, probably one off camera. But it's just, for us to kind of note that, yeah, I think that we've managed, this alt season and this year pretty well. And we were pretty prepared for that type of a pullback. Our big positions were in good stuff. I mean, other than being in Bitcoin and Bitcoin alone, or even moving quickly to US dollars, I mean, you couldn't have really been better positioned than I thought, we were, just relatively. I mean, just in the grand scheme of things, I thought we really did a great job. What about some of our non-conviction stuff? What about some of our smaller stuff? What in particular do we have that we kind of place some faith in that actually took a hit? Let's talk about some losses. What's sucking right now for us? Is there anything that sucks?
Bitcoin SV, we still have some. I'm ready to get rid of it whenever we can. But yeah, I think RSR took a pretty big plunge. I was pretty surprised to see that. Yeah, I don't know exactly what to make of it. And RSR is kind of this tricky one. One thing I was looking at was I've been trying to get re-caught up with DeFi the last week, and Convex is a particular name that's offering really attractive yields on Curve, which is one of the underlying protocols of DeFi. And part of that was because they are yielding a pretty great return on RSV, which is primarily used in South America, right? And that's the stablecoin of RSR. So that was the first time I'd heard anything mentioned of that in a while. And so that was kind of an interesting narrative that maybe RSV is starting to gain some prominence, specifically in South America, Venezuela and Argentina. And that might be a boost for RSR. But yeah, right now RSR definitely took a pretty large hit. And just kind of the way the chart looks, specifically on a Bitcoin basis, I think that one, I wouldn't be surprised to see it go lower.
So why do you think RSR took a hit? Why are some things taking more of a hit? Is it purely a market cap type thing? Like, when that much money flows out of a market to pull back 60%, on average, or Bitcoin or whatever, does this just not make the cut? Kind of like the less liquid projects just kind of get gutted more quickly? Or was there some additional thought behind what got hit worse than others? I was just looking across the different market cap lists and looking at my different, project lists and trying to figure out, is there some storyline that's pulling money away from a certain type of project. Not all money and not all blockchain projects are created equally and are even about the same stuff. So is there a particular reason RSR got hit here?
For me, I think it's just like at this moment in time, DeFi is the biggest, like most booming space. And while like RSR is the governance token of RSV, so like RSR itself doesn't have a lot of you can't really earn yield with it. You probably could earn yield with RSV, but it's so like only South Americans have it. So like there's not a lot of people who own RSV. So yeah, I think like since people are searching for yield, especially now, I understand. Yeah, it makes sense to me why RSR took a big hit, because it's not gaining like a bunch of adoption like all these other stable coins that, every DeFi platform that comes out now has its own stablecoin. Alchemix just came out and they have ALUSD. Yeah, pretty much every platform that comes out has its own version of a stablecoin. So yeah, just a kind of a very competitive market to be in. And if you don't like really hit the ground running, then maybe that's why. I think long term it's fundamentally like very sound, but yeah, just maybe that's one of the reasons why.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you look at Ethereum, you look at Chainlink, you look at, other projects that are kind of top 20 and things like that. I mean, they bounce back pretty well. They all kind of float in tandem a little bit at this point.
I will say, one thing that scared me after I got back was checking out AGI, like looking for AGI BTC, and I was like, "Oh shit, what happened?" Like, and so that like legit, like I was like, "Oh shit, what happened?" But they're migrating their network to Cardano, and so they're not. I guess like I still don't know the specifics, Tyler. Maybe you could fill us in, but like, are they just not trading anything? Like, there's no liquidity on Ethereum. Like you can't trade it anywhere.
So like they had to move it over to a different like Coinbase, like to where they created a new coin and they airdropped a different coin to everybody that was holding the AGI token. So it's a different contract. It's a different and so like everything still is tracking AGI, but the new one's AGIX. And so that's why there's no liquidity. There's no is because everything on that's tracking the metrics of the different exchange APIs and everything are tracking the AGI contract still. But Will, if you would pull up Hero the chart for Hero HXRO, if you guys want to see what strength looks like, this Hero chart is something to be seen. And the reason is because Soros money has bought Hero. So
I saw that.
Hero did a $15 million placement from investors, and one of the lead investors, go and look at it on like a 4-hour time frame. So this is while everything else got destroyed against Bitcoin. Look at it versus the US dollar. So unlimited money was pouring in to Hero while the rest of the market was dumping. I mean, this is what, like, this is, you want to see what strength looks like? None of our stuff did that.
So like, I will say like May 28th, May 29th was peak fear. If you could open up that, that link I just dropped, Will. Yeah, so like if you scroll down a little bit, and go to like a max time frame, let's just say. Yeah, like May 29th, May, kind of right in that area, and just kind of spot checking it over the last couple of years. You see that big crash in March 2020. Fear was at its all-time low, or like close to all-time lows. August 2019, right before the bull market really kicked in, like fear was at, or yeah, fear was like dominating the market. We're right at these lows again, and I really think, you know, like it's now like these are just incredible opportunities to buy and hold or stack sats, whatever you want to call it. And so 28th, 29th, that's a day for me that like across the board the market just shit itself. But it presented amazing buy the dip opportunities. And so like, you know, Heroes definitely very strong. I think there's some DeFi names like Convex specifically came to market in the last couple of weeks, and they're doing really well. Badger got shit, like just got totally destroyed. But I think they're, you know, they've made a comeback off the lows. They're like up almost 100% off the lows. Curve as well. Like these underlying protocols are, I think they're primed. For some returns kind of going into the future. A couple other names that we have that I think look very strong are, I actually, before I get there, Solana is also doing some work today, up 10 or up 12% against Bitcoin. So yeah, you know, like there are some names that we have that are doing really well, and really, you know, they got hit that 1 week, but they're performing well. But yeah, coming up against some names that I do still like a lot. Yeah, you know, like this chart really isn't that terrible, all things considered. You know, it looks like there's definitely some strength here, as it's been the case. Solana has been maybe not, it's not quite Doge this year, but it's been definitely a winner by all accounts. But yeah, anyway, going into some names that I like. Sushi is definitely one that looks very strong. Algo, Tyler, do you want to talk more about what you dropped yesterday? I didn't have a chance to like really dig into it.
So Yieldly is a new DeFi protocol that is launching on top of Algorand. They're going to do like an IDO and do some initial coin offerings, but it looks pretty cool. Their product roadmap includes no loss lotteries. Then it goes to multi-coin lotteries, NFT lotteries, multi-winner lotteries. They're going to roll out different forms of staking and bridges to bridge between Algorand, Binance Smart Chain, and Matic. And they're backed by CMS, which is, they're great guys, good trading firm. A lot of other names that you see a lot around the place. I don't know any of these other guys for real, but CMS, they're good guys, and they've got them on the cap table. And it's the first DeFi on Algorand, which is a Rockefeller-backed blockchain project. So it could be pretty interesting. And it looks like it's launching in Japan. So that's really bullish as well, because Japanese they're buyers. They love to buy, and they love to buy high.
Very cool.
What about Doge though? You had mentioned Solana's no Doge, or it's not quite Doge. I just want to what's going on with Doge? It's 40 cents, and it looks pretty. Coinbase Pro just announced that they're accepting it. I guess they're trying to open up their liquidity channels and get it ready for trading. And at that point, I guess it would be ready for most regular folks, 50 to 60 million people that are on Coinbase regular. This is always a weird chart, and it's highly manipulated in terms of, memeability and celebrities and public figures. And we've always kind of looked at Doge as something that preempts alt markets. Talking about that 60% correction over the last couple of weeks, Doge held up fairly well. It really, really did hold up pretty well. I think at some point even just kind of crept up to the 4 or 5 market cap during all that turmoil. So I think we're back down to 6 or 7 number market cap at this point. But looking at it, here on a Bitcoin basis, and on a dollar basis as well, just because there's so much psychology behind Doge and dollar. What do you guys think?
I don't know for sure. Yeah, Doge is difficult for me just because part of me is like, it's run up so much already. Can it keep going up? But then the other part of me is like, well, it's got Elon behind it. And, it's Elon. He hasn't failed at anything. And then I saw a really good thread by Croissant F on Twitter, which was just breaking down Elon's potentially like his narrative on like what he's actually doing in crypto, like what he's doing and how it involves Tesla and kind of all these other things. He didn't really mention Doge in that analysis, but I do think Doge is here to stay. I think for me, I would just say there's probably consolidation is just kind of a cop out, but I don't see us like just taking off from here. But we could, I could definitely be wrong on that. It's a tough call for me. I really don't know.
What do you think Doge's role is in the ecosystem now? I mean, really, like, who knows what's going to happen, right? I guess what I'm interested in is like, is Doge the people's currency? Is it the meme Bitcoin? Is it the everyman's Bitcoin? I mean, what is it trying to be?
Yeah, it's that. It's trying. It is the perfect example to help explain to normal, average, everyday people how currency actually works. Not Bitcoin, not just currency. And you've got, because now you've got something that you can use that has a value, that uses a blockchain. You can download a wallet, you can transfer it, you can move it. But really, you're getting to draw comparisons between the difference between Doge and a dollar. What's the difference between Doge and a dollar? It's like, you don't need to understand the difference between Bitcoin Cash and $1. You don't need to understand the difference between Ripple and $1. You don't need to understand the difference between Algo and $1. Like, but like, if you can understand the difference between Doge to $1, then you can start forming your own opinions about all this different stuff, right? And I think that, yeah, that's what's happening. I do think that it's funny though that the Doge listing came days after they bought Bison Trails, and Bison Trails supports Dogecoin, along with Helium and a bunch of other protocols and projects. But, you know, somebody had to build out the Rosetta API for Dogecoin to even get listed on Coinbase, because they won't list a project unless the Rosetta API has been built out. So my guess is that Bison Trails was the, you know, anonymously push the Rosetta API update. I mean, they just run a Dogecoin node, which doesn't mean they do any development. But I mean, I don't know. I'm just putting two and two together. I think that that's like what happened. And if that's the case, and you've got Bison Trails pushing Dogecoin, you've got Elon pushing Dogecoin, you've got Mark Cuban who wants to be Elon pushing Dogecoin, you've got Chandler Guo, who people don't really know in America, but he's a big deal in China. And if you go to his Twitter account right now, his bio is, "I am all in Dogecoin." He was one of the biggest Litecoin miners, right? Like, so he's been stacking Dogecoin for a long time. It's like he's one of the big Bitcoin miners. So like, you know, it's like you got the Chinese supporting Dogecoin. I mean, it's inevitable, right? Like,
So how do we look at a chart like Dogecoin? Do we look at just periods of accumulation? Do we look at, you know, guys like this who are switching from, you know, who are mining Litecoin and stacking Dogecoin, pushing narratives like this, or you know, signaling and giving their positioning out for whatever reason? You know, the kind of, what's the saying, get long and get loud? Isn't that kind of like what people like to do? And I feel like there's a lot of that going on. But if you look at the Dogecoin chart, you just have like large step ups in periods of consolidation that come after that. You know, you see them on a short term like this, and then can we even zoom out a little bit to, you know, even a 2 year period, a 3 year
This was
period?
just a chart that I dropped in the chat. One thing I just want to mention is, like, in terms of, yeah, so this is like the long-term, super long-term chart, which is, you know, it's pretty incredible, remarkable when you look at it. But one thing on that other chart was just like, we're getting a TD9 sell signal on a weekly basis. And we got that a couple weeks ago. And right now we're kind of bumping up and testing resistance, or trusting a previous, like, yeah, support resistance line. So it doesn't look like the most bullish price action from my perspective. But, you know, to Tyler's point, the TA could be all wrong. You know, if there's enough side capital on the sidelines that, like, you know, that are just waiting to ape in, then yeah,
I mean, the TA could be right? Like, it could go lower. Usually coins that have been out for a long period of time, when they get listed on Coinbase, they don't pump. They don't. People move it in, they're getting ready to sell it. So, I mean, the TA could be right. Like, we could dump, and we could try to retest, you know, like that 0.00001, or we could break below it. But like, I think it's a fake out.
We'll see if you can switch to a log, keep that same time frame, and just switch to a log.
It is log.
That's log.
That's log. Switch to linear. Click the log at the bottom. Bottom right.
Bottom right. Okay. It's not, I guess it's not much of a,
you can't like, there's not, that's exponential. I mean, like, what do you do? That's as exponential as you get.
Well, I mean, is it exponential? Look at the scale on the right. It looks pretty linear to me. And then if you go back to log, it's like, I guess you could visualize it in different ways. That I guess with this view, you really don't get much of a difference. But if you look at it
to a shorter time frame.
Oh, I guess we're on a 3-day.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it on a little bit different platform, so it probably renders a little bit differently. But with the log, you can kind of like, it looks like clear, just it really looks like nonsense until you look at it on a log scale and you zoom in and you zoom out and you start to kind of see, well, maybe this is just accumulation over a long period of time. If the point of markets is to move money from weak hands to stronger hands, like that's what I see in the Doge chart. Looks like nothing we've got to compare it to, because this is the story of a shit coin that became a pump and dump haven that people, played around with for a long time, came and went, and, they had their fun and they entered and they left, and maybe they did it again over and over. Some people stayed. But now you have completely new entrants in a platform. And it's really, I don't even know how to read it, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful chart because you don't really get to see stuff like that. But one big thing is that these large accumulation levels, if you can zoom out to like a 5-year span, just encapsulating last 2017's, everything, you kind of see that like you have these big spikes and you have cool off periods, and it's just consolidation. And, like even on a Bitcoin basis, is this on a Bitcoin or USD? Bitcoin. So like you've got these significant levels that get achieved every step of the way, and they hold to a lot of degree. They hold. It's like you create these new little incremental floors every step of the way. And so where are we now? Are we in the middle of a spike? Or are we in the changing of a dynamic? I have no idea. It's a weird chart. I love looking at the Dogecoin chart, and it keeps on, kind of surprising me. But, here we are, I think, at a period of consolidation from a, chart perspective, just a historical chart perspective. But if Doge is leading the charge in terms of psychology of crypto adoption, where it's like, like you said, Tyler, you don't have to know how Doge works or what it's all about. You just have to kind of know that you can compare it to the dollar. I think that's a pretty powerful thing. And from at least my belief is there's a lot of TA that matters, a lot of charting that is really, really relevant because it's what everybody's looking at. And there's a lot of truth to it. But when it comes to market movements, fundamental, changes and significant roles in markets, that breaks charts. So I've got my eyes on the Doge chart. It's just very interesting to me to see kind of what's going on in terms of what it is. I think it's just got everybody enthralled. I think everybody's trying to ask the same question, trying to figure out what it is, but you can't ignore it at this point. I think the next wave of institutional adoption is going to be really centered around, I guess, like the commerce side of things with Doge. It's going to be hoisted into the pit as a potential new kind of merchant-based monetary system, a consumption-based system. It's already kind of being pitched that way. Oh, you can't buy anything with Bitcoin. It's not good to transact with, but you can buy a lot of shit with Dogecoin. You can go buy a vacation right now. So, I think there's a lot that's going on a psychological level that might not be well represented in TA, maybe.
Well, adding on to that, you know, there's a big push right now by Bitcoin maximalists to get all the exchanges to relist Bitcoin as Sats, and to get it to where, like, if you want to trade Bitcoin, you can trade Bitcoin to USD, but delisting Bitcoin pairs against all these alts and listing Sats pairs against all the alts, and getting people used to spending Sats and sending Sats from a psychological level. And I saw an argument on Twitter the other day that somebody was trying to say that Dogecoin is actually one of the most expensive coins on Coinbase because of how much more expensive a Dogecoin is than a Sat. And that Bitcoin's actually a lot cheaper than Dogecoin because a Sat is much cheaper than a Doge. And one Doge equals one Doge, and so one Sat equals one Sat. That was kind of like a psychological argument that I'm seeing getting played out, and it's kind of leaking into the masses. But one thing I want to say is that, like, it's all about the, like, how high can these things go? It's all about the denominator. And we have to remember that, like, institutions and rich people, they became institutions and rich people from, like, taking money from regular people. And, like, the regular people are going to chase Dogecoin. They're going to mine helium. Like, I was getting my hair cut 2 days ago, and my hairdresser said, "Hey, one of my friends just got this crypto miner." And I said, "Do they put it in their window?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "That's what I've been doing for the last year." And she said, "Yeah, I thought that's what that was." Like, she's about it. Like, people are about, like, the ivory tower BS is not going to be the stuff that's super successful. It's going to be the things that appeal to the everyday common man, that the institutions have a chance to get their fingers in early, and it's like, that's what Dogecoin is. That's what helium is. That's what a lot of the, like, a lot of the stuff on Coinbase, but not everything on Coinbase.
Yeah, no, it's so relevant when it comes to crypto markets. It's relevant. So the psychology is relevant. The TA is relevant. The volume compares. The different metrics that we all look at. It's all relevant. How is it relevant? That's the tricky part. How much do you overweight psychology? What happens when Doge hits $1? I mean, you've got psychology driving that. I mean, you've also got markets and market manipulators and everything based on the fact that, um, one thing's driving another and how much of it is relying on that. But, it's pretty impressive. Now, one thing I think that is hugely important in the big scheme of things in terms of what drives what is the denominator, right? The ultimate denominator. What is that? It's the dollar. So Ro, man, would you educate us just a little bit? Where's the dollar now? What's going on with that? We always looked at Bitcoin as something that would work in tumultuous times where economies based on fiat currencies could not be relied upon in the same way that we have in times of good. And really, in a lot of ways, Bitcoin is being tested in its use case with COVID and money printing and a large number of other factors. So where are we with the dollar? Where are we with the fiat system that underlies a lot of the valuations that our crypto economies are based on?
Yeah, the dollar's at a pretty interesting spot, in my opinion. From the way I look at it, I forget the exact percentage, but like something more than like over 20% of all dollars have been printed within the last 18 months that have ever been in circulation. So, like, that's a massive number. And I've seen numbers that are as high as like 40%. I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you it's more than 20%. And so when you have something like that happen, and then couple that with asset prices like corn, lumber, steel, and all these other things just going crazy. Inflation's like coming. And so what that means is that the value of the dollar loses. And as you can see, over 2020, the value of the dollar has dropped dramatically. However, I think we're on the precipice of a much larger decline. And like on a short-term basis, which is going to affect crypto markets, obviously, because again, the dollar is the global reserve currency as it stands right now, and it affects everything, just the way it moves. But on a short-term basis, it does look like the dollar is choosing violence right now and will rebound a little bit, which should draw down all markets. So we're seeing the S&P 500 sell off a little bit right now. We're seeing, Bitcoin and Ethereum run up against like short-term resistance lines. And so while they look good over the last couple of days, I could definitely see a pullback just given price action that's happening right now on the dollar. Personally, I've just kind of marked out some zones that were interesting to me. I think we've hit that first blue zone, like kind of around the 93 area already. And I don't anticipate us retesting that. But I could definitely see us going to that 91.7, 92 area, if you will, which would drag some stuff down. I don't think we're necessarily out of the clear yet in terms of like, it's a full blown bull market. I think we still need some consolidation. For Bitcoin, that means, bouncing around anywhere between 30 and 40K. But yeah, as far as the dollar is concerned, I think we do see a small pullback to like 92-ish. And if you get that and you trade Forex, then you go super long the euro anywhere around 92, 93.
I want to give you a couple of data points and see. Obviously, the first one, makes sense, and the second one, I want your thoughts on it. The first one, backing up what you just mentioned at the beginning about inflation. This just kind of hit the wire. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink sees potential for big shock from inflation. So you've got some people who really do kind of move markets and are representing large company positions that reflect overall market holdings and economies to a large degree, who are coming out and saying that. You got possibly a different message being signaled from the Fed. And then this is just another blurb that came through today. One of the most interesting stories in the last 24 hours is that the Russian finance minister has publicly stated that the National Wellbeing Fund will be completely divesting their $40+ billion exposure to US dollars. The plan is to more heavily invest in the Chinese yuan, and euros, along with purchasing gold for the first time in history. So just kind of reading into that, Russia moving funds and exposure away from the US dollar in excess of $40 billion, moving over to Chinese and euro currencies and gold for the first time in history. Thoughts?
That's really fascinating. I hadn't heard that. I think as far as Russia goes, you're seeing crude oil spike a good bit. It's definitely the highest it's been all year and the highest it's been since 2019. So that's really interesting.
So what's the implication for crypto markets? I mean, with your view on the dollar choosing violence and where you think we're going, how does this relate to crypto markets? I mean, you mentioned the S&P and other markets, and how do we read into this?
Yeah, so if you have Russia, which I think is a G7 country, a superpower in the world, divesting all of their, maybe not divesting entirely, maybe not completely eliminating their exposure to the US dollar, but substantially decreasing it. That's just weakening of the US dollar, as a global reserve currency. Like that's basically saying, hey, and I think some of the underlying tweets that I've been seeing, who haven't really necessarily like been calling stuff out, but it seems like they're poking at this underlying tension between the US and then China specifically, but also, China and Russia. They're not like saying anything explicitly, but they are kind of alluding to that there being this underlying tension in markets. And while, like what happens, what do we see happen after a euphoria or a mania phase is you see some news come out that is fundamentally like going to shake up the rest of the world. Typically, like, after after some event, something changes the way you do business or you just operate normally. And so I've seen several mentions now over the last several months of this something brewing kind of underneath it all. And yeah, Russia didn't go specifically into crypto; they went into gold. But gold is I would say a poor man's Bitcoin. So any boom in gold, I would say, is probably pretty good for Bitcoin as well. I can't speak about the broader market, but anything that's good for Bitcoin is generally good for the broader market as well.
Yeah. I mean, the dollar, like everybody's, it's just interesting to see how it's going to play out, right? Because the meme is the US full node, and it shows like an aircraft carrier, and we've got all these fighter jets and battleships, and so it's like that's the that's the meme, but it's real. And it's like the dollar's going to shit, inflation's going rampant, but like all it takes is the US to say we're going socialist, and we got a strong military, and we're still going to control things and keep the prices at where we want them at in US dollar wise. And then we get into a Cold War situation with the rest of the world, right? Because like, look at the price of silver, and like, I mean, don't like pull the chart up, but like the price of silver is like way low compared to the supply. You can't buy silver. Like you can't buy physical silver right now because nobody has it, but yet the price is still where it's at because it's being kept there, and I think that everybody is trying to put their money into gold and silver and get it physically if they can. Like people don't want paper gold and silver, but I think that's going to increasingly push more and more people into crypto. And this is the meme I just sent to Will. If you click on this picture, click on the actual, expand that. This is like one of the inherent big benefits of crypto. So basically, Joe Weisenthal, I'll read it just so there's no, blank, like dead sound. But he's saying that like extreme volatility is one of crypto's best features. Like people put just a small amount of their money in, and the swings make that small amount turn into such a large amount that now they're over allocated into crypto, which eventually turns to them becoming all in. To which this guy replied, "That's the exact opposite thing that happened to me. I started with just putting a small amount in, and it grew to 30%. And he goes, I didn't go all in. I didn't shove more money in. I just, it's like, it's just awesome." And the guy basically said like, "Hey, what did you rebalance after that 1% turned to 30%? And he says, "Why would I rebalance the best store of value in human history while it's still in the very early stages of global adoption?" And it's just like, He literally proves the point of the guy's original tweet that like this is like crypto is such a hedge against the volatility of everything else that's going on in the world that all it takes is for people to dip their toe in and see how messed up the rest of the world really is. And they're trapped. They're trapped. I mean, it happened to us. You know, it's like I don't want to talk about it, but you know, it's like a little turns into a lot fast.
And then a lot turns into a little, but still more than what you put in.
I don't
Typically.
know.
If you hold and you don't trade it all away on leverage, then yes.
So how are we feeling at this point? We're at the beginning of June. We looked at May as certain, you know, we looked at it at the beginning of May like, hey, this is going to be a really good month. It was, and then it reset itself in a lot of ways. We had originally looked at June as being a nod of the hat to DeFi summer. Where are we at with that right now? And, you know, where do we think June is going to take us as it relates to alts and DeFi? You know, what, looking at our original trajectory, how are we doing? Where are things now after this little storm that just happened?
Well, you know, I don't want to be rain on the parade, but I'm worried that this, like, I'm worried DeFi summer is going to get hijacked. Like, everybody's talking about it, everybody's interested in it. There's a lot of buzz. So there's some yield on these new projects. But I think what really is about to happen is like all the smart money that I know got out of Bitcoin vocally early in 60 something K and went into stables. They got it out of Ethereum around 4K and went into stables. And they've been farming these yield tokens for months now with a lot of money, making a lot of yield. And I'm wondering if this DeFi summer is not just going to be them averaging out of their farm tokens onto all the people who now have cheap gas fees on Ethereum. Because $1,000 transaction fee didn't stop me from doing stuff during the bull market, but I know it still did a lot of people. And now they're so excited to move around with cheap fees. You know, this is the perfect time to average out of these yield farming bags and get ETH back and start selling into a big ETH position for the bull run. And I think that's probably what's going to happen is that these DeFi bags aren't going to pump the way everybody wants them to, and that it's going to be a prolonged dead cat bounce, and everybody's going to realize that they got trapped in. It's going to cause a major sell-off in DeFi for people to like average back in next year. And I think that that's probably what's going to happen. I think there's going to be some things that do really well, like sushi, because it's an aggregate and it's a pair against all these other pairs. And it's kind of like a middleman that people are going to run into, or that the smart contracts are going to force them through the pools to get the best rates. And so like stuff like that, sushi, Wi-Fi could possibly do okay. But I don't think we're going to get a DeFi summer. I mean, I'm okay with being wrong, but like, I think that instead we might get like a Binance Smart Chain summer, or a Solana Dex summer, like Serum and stuff that to pop up on Solana might go crazy. Or even Polkadot. We might get a Kusama Parachain summer. But I think that DeFi summer is going to be used for whales to average out of their bags.
So I think there's a lot of good points you made, Tyler. I think for me, I'm still super bullish on DeFi specifically, though. I think I can't pull this up. I was looking just now and I couldn't find anything, but I think historically, June has been a really strong performance. It has certainly for the market. It's probably not the top. I think April is the best performing month in the market for like the broader market. But I think for crypto, June has historically been a really strong pump month. And I think so. Everything got rinsed at the end of May, like everything. And I think like a lot of these like more speculative, newer DeFi protocols actually got hit particularly hard. Um, Badger and Curve both went like Badger went down to $10, Curve went down to $1. Like both of those are Curve specifically is like a very underlying protocol for all of DeFi. Sushi, Wi-Fi, all of these things interact with them. So that's like pretty shocking. But ever since then, like right now on a USD basis, Curve's at 250. So like it's gone up quite significantly since the drop off just like a week or so ago. Badger has gone up to almost $20. It's like I think at 18 right now. And then like some of these other names, KNC shot up yesterday. They're backed by 3 Arrows Capital. They were up like 60 or 70% just in the last couple of days alone. So we're seeing some massive spikes in price action in DeFi right now. So I wouldn't be too quick to write it off. And then like we pulled up the Zcash ETH chart earlier on this chat. But also like the Litecoin ETH chart looks amazing. The Sushi ETH chart looks awesome. I think I'm super bullish for the rest of this month on alts and crypto in general. I think Bitcoin can go all the way to like 45, 48 before seeing a potential pullback. And ETH could go, I think Path called for like 3,600 this morning before we see another pullback. So yeah, like I'm still firmly bullish on the market, even though we did have this rinse out. But yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult position to be in, but I do think the lows are in on a USD basis across the board.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily bearish on the overall market. I just don't think DeFi summer is going to happen. I think some of the things will pump. I don't think some of the things will pump to the targets that people expect. And I guess that's what I'm saying is that like, I think that they're going to be like short sold, like the fibs aren't going to get hit because or either it's going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's a sustainable. I don't think that that's going to be like a market sector. I don't know how to put it other than like, I'm still very bullish on ETH, but I'm not as DeFi summer ready as I was last week.
I am super bullish on specific DeFi names. Like, yeah, and that makes sense. Like I don't like Aave. I think it'll do solid, but to your point, I don't think it's going to be like a super outperformer. I think we all like Sushi a lot. I like Wi-Fi a lot for sure. But like, Compound, Synthetics, Maker, all these others, LRC, I'm not like super bullish on the state of DeFi, but there are some super like newer protocols like Convex, which is made by a lot of the same people who are on the Curve team. That looks really interesting right now. I've seen a lot of hype for Alchemy. There's so much going on Phantom and Matic. And if you want to see strength, I think that Matic chart looks really great too.
Dude, look at ZRX.
I haven't looked
versus
at ZeroX.
Bitcoin. I'll show you. That's a coiled snake right there.
So ZRX, ZRX, KNC, and Maker all look like that to me.
Dude, Maker's one of those that I've never bought, but I've always known, like, from the beginning, that that's one of the most legit projects in the entire space.
Check out the chart. It looks exactly like that. Maybe not exactly, but very close. It's like it really hasn't pumped ever. And then KNC also.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like a Super Bowl now. Like especially after that cleanse, it's like, okay, everybody who shouldn't have been in money in the market is now not in the market. Yeah, like, and like on an ETH basis, all of these things look incredible too. So yeah, personally, I think Zcash is going to go to the moon, but I am heavily biased, so take everything with a grain of salt.
Well, if Zcash goes to the moon, I'm going to be asking you for a Lambo, because that shouldn't be too difficult for you to do something, for your pal. For real, I'm going to ask you, bro.
What a chart. Holy cow.
Such misery.
What a chart.
Misery builds character.
Yeah. 7 Bitcoin per Zcash, 2029.
At what point do you think privacy coins get their day to shine in the cycle?
I don't think Zcash runs with privacy coins. Like, I think Zcash, like, privacy. Yeah, I don't think Zcash, like, I think Zcash gets its day when ZK rollups start getting, like, implemented all over the place, and everybody understands the value of, like, the ZK, like, and everything. But I think Monero, though, is going to have its day soon, because they've got atomic swaps that they're working on, to where you're going to be able to take your Monero off of the exchange, move it around, and then swap it to Bitcoin and have it sent to an address, and nobody's going to know who owns that Bitcoin. And that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, Monero's price chart is pretty strong. Like, it's a pretty strong chart for sure. Yeah, I think it's just not listed on Coinbase. So, and I don't think it ever will be. So I think it will pump for sure. Just because of the people who own it are the overlords of the underworld. Like, they're just like fluffy pony. So yeah, like I do think it's not going anywhere, but my preference for privacy coins is Zcash. But like Zcash is going to have, it's like a Bitcoin replacement. That's what Zcash is. It's what Satoshi really wanted to create, I would say, and like what Hal Finn. No, like, because like Hal Finn, in like 2010 was put a post on Bitcoin Talk being like, looking at ways to add anonymity to Bitcoin. And like one of the 18 people that he followed on Twitter back then was like Zero Coin Project, which later became Zcash, and Zuko, one of the founders of Zcash. So like, he was Hal Finn for sure was a big proponent of it, and I think Satoshi was as well. But like they just didn't crack the code on zero knowledge proofs until after the fact. So yeah, I think Zcash is Satoshi's final vision for Bitcoin.
I'm pretty sure Zero Coin was XZC, Zcoin. That was the one that was based off the Zero Coin. Zcoin was based off a different trusted setup.
I think Zero Coin Project was different.
No. Like Zcoin, like there was Zcoin was based. Like, let me see. One of them was not based off XZC. I'll look it. I'll tell you. I don't know. One of them was based off Zero Coin. The other was based off a different trusted setup.
So while we're looking into that, I want to kind of see if we can wind things down a little bit. Beginning of June is where we are, and we've got this whole month ahead of us. It seems like June so far has been pretty good in terms of us not continuing to go down. But what do you guys have in terms of kind of final thoughts as we wrap up this week's call?
Final thoughts. I think now is a good time to get exposure to crypto if you haven't already. If you don't buy after a 70% drop, then you never will. And typically, a 70% drop to me is extraordinarily bullish. Because if this was a bear market, then it would be a slow bleed. If you just rinse people, that's a really bullish sign because you want to get rid of all this leverage and continue doing what you're doing. But if you're selling and if the top is in, then you just milk it and you do that slowly and you bleed the market dry. And that's not what happened at all. So that was a bunch of bullish selling to me.
What do you think, Tyler?
I think that this AMC pump is going to revive a last wave of excitement. And I think that like some new participants got brought in, and they're going to show these next new participants how to come in. And I think we're going to have another dog. I think DOGE dog coins are going to have their day again sometime soon.
Okay. All right. Oh, sorry. Was there something else there?
No.
Okay.
Dog coins are going to have their day again sometime soon. And CZ had a serious conversation with Kobe the other day, like in private, to where like he legitimately said like dog coins are a new asset class, and like there was no joke there. Like he was 100% serious that dog coins are a new asset class.
CZ was or Kobe was?
CZ.
Richie, where are you at?
very interested by that last comment. Yeah, I think that it's, it's early, but it's game on again. I think that in referencing legacy markets and the meme stocks that are there, AMC, GameStop, I think whatever's happening right now, I just can't wait until that bleeds back over into crypto again. I think it's all just pumping and priming, getting ready for that. I'm still extremely bullish. I am not going to fool myself though in thinking that we can't pull back again. We can't retest those lows. I think that we could continue to do that and chop, through the remainder of the year. That's great for volatility driven markets and some of the fun stuff. This is really, really exciting. If you don't get wiped out, you're having a great time. And if you're getting wiped out, like probably not playing the right game, or, at least take your losses and get back in it, because this is the beginning of, the largest generational wealth transfer that we'll ever be familiar with. So of course you're going to have doggy coins as their own asset class. We experimented with rocks and shiny objects and different colored stones. And then we started cutting stones up into intricate shapes. And then we started stamping metal into these little circles.
Name a more beloved creature.
If every dog
Dogs.
has its day, then every doggy coin should have its day. No, just to kind of wrap it up, I'm pretty bullish. I'm okay with this sort of a correction. I don't think people lost their homes over it, which means that, let's go. And that's going to kind of keep on happening. But I think the levels of exuberance that we will reach will be orders of magnitude beyond what we saw. I do not think that a couple weeks ago was 2017. I think 2017 is just getting started. So anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts. I think we're going up. I think that, we may consolidate here and stabilize for a little while, and it's going to give alts a chance to run again and try to reclaim some of those previous levels. But you got to be really cautious, because I don't think we'll make it all the way back up before we pull back.
One thing I forgot to mention, Mina started trading, and it hasn't, I think it's bottomed out now. I think it's gotten around $4.50, $5, but it bottomed out around $2.53. Do we want to consider like looking into it, or is that coming past? Have we soured on the project?
So, okay, I was making sure I wasn't muted. So like, I literally I saw that some of the funds that got in early were trying to get out of their position, and we talked about it, and I went back and forth, but I saw a lot of people were still signaling. So I literally was about to DM my OTC guy. He had some unlocked Mina for sale for $8. And I saw the price on the exchange was trading at $40. Share my screen. And I literally was typing up a DM to this guy to be like, hey, let me get all you got at $8. And then all of a sudden that happened. Because like it had been trading in this range. And then literally I was like typing up the email to the guy, and boom, it just like it got wrecked.
Which, like now, do you want to like?
I don't know.
Anyway, we can talk about that later. And I just think it's a pretty big project, and it's right now, I think, outside of the top 100 coins on CoinGecko. So I think there's some potential there. But anyway, just wanted to bring that up.
Cool. Well, we'll take a look at that. See if we have any interest in that. We can talk about that as the week goes on, or I'll definitely take a look. I didn't realize that whole thing had happened. So I've definitely got some things to kind of look into with Mina. Any other final thoughts before we hop off? Cool. All right. Well, we've got an interesting week ahead. We'll see what happens. We'll see where we go. It's fun to be back in the saddle, have all of us back here. But who knows what's going to happen. If we sell off again, we'll sell off. If we go up, we go up. If we go sideways, we go sideways. But I'm having a good time. All right,
Enjoying
guys.
the ride.
To the ride to the moon.
There's only one way.
All right, guys. Have a great week. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
See ya.